Hey guys, it's Mr. Marabella here with a little trick review for physics. Here we're going to be doing an example problem where we're using SOHCAHTOA to find an angle measure inside a right triangle. Again, remember, SOHCAHTOA only works for right triangles. Recap: sine is equal to the opposite of hypotenuse, side length. Cosine is equal to the adjacent over hypotenuse. And tangent is equal to the opposite over adjacent. So how I like to start these problems, I look at my triangle and I need to determine, what sides are which. So I'm going to go ahead here. I'm going to figure out, what I have. Now, one key thing I always like to start with is I know that the hypotenuse is always opposite the right angle. So here's my right angle. I draw or trace my finger from the vertice of the right angle through the opposite side. Right? That ends up being the hypotenuse. So I'm going to label that H. Okay. Then we got to figure out where some confusion comes into play is opposite and adjacent. Remember, adjacent means next to. Well, there are only two sides that are next to this angle that we're looking for. Right? One is the 9, which you've already established is the hypotenuse. Right? The other one is the 5, so that must be our adjacent side. Okay? Which leaves us with this unknown value, which will be our opposite. Okay? Now, deciding what we need to do to solve for the angle, right? We first need to pick our trig ratio. So I know the adjacent side and I know the hypotenuse. I look up at SOHCAHTOA and I see, adjacent and hypotenuse is cosine. So we're going to go ahead and set that up. Cosine of my angle equals the adjacent side length over the hypotenuse. All right, I'm going to substitute in my known values. Cosine of our unknown value, theta, equals the adjacent side length, which is 5, over the hypotenuse side length, which is 9. Okay. Now, cosine, sine, tangent are all operations just like addition, subtraction, or multiplication and division. And whenever we're dealing with an equation and we want to solve for an unknown, right, that's within an operation, we need to do the inverse. Right? It just so happens that the inverse of cosine looks like this. Alright, so there is the inverse of cosine. It's cos negative 1. Alright? Just like with all equations, whatever we do to the one side, right? So if I take the inverse cosine of the left-hand side, I have to take the inverse cosine of this right-hand side as well. So inverse cosine of the fraction 5/9. Okay? These will cancel each other out, which is why we're doing it. And we end up with an angle measure once you type this into your calculator. So the angle measure should be 56.3 degrees. If you're not getting 56.3 degrees, what might be happening is if you have a TI-83 or greater, you might be in radian mode. So simple switch, hit the mode button, should see something highlighted. If radian's highlighted, go over and highlight degree, which is DEG, and you should be all set, and then try your answer again.